What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another update for the Waterbox. We got a lot of new things going on with the tank, a lot of positives, and then a few question marks. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I did two things that I believe that really helped with the algae. The first thing was I added 3 conchs. They were the fighting conchs, and I think there was like a tiger conch. So here's one of them. This is the larger one. He's been sifting through the sand, eating a lot of the algae on the sand bed. And here's another guy. So I got 2 of these other guys that are a little bit smaller. They're kind of just buried in there. The sand bed's not that deep, so you'll obviously see where they're at. But there's the third guy somewhere in here. But what they did was they started on this side of the tank because that's where I added. And as you can see, like, it's so nice and white and clean on this side. And in the back where they haven't really found those spots yet, they haven't gone there just because I think like the nooks and crannies to get to that area is kind of like blocked. You see this is like a really narrow path, so they don't really like going back there, but they do make their way back there from time to time. But I think probably another week, 2 weeks, they'll take care of the sand bed, and the sand bed itself is going to look really nice. Adding those 3 guys alone just really solved my algae issues on the bottom of the tank. In the algae on the rocks itself, I've noticed the fish were eating a lot of it off after I treated the tank with ChemiClean. I had this like weird, I think it's like cyano mixed with like some sort of algae issue in there in between, because we're seeing like air bubbles in between. Because what happens is you'll see the algae growth and then you'll see kind of like cyano grow on top of it. You know, a few days later, the cyano will kind of recede back and forth. But it got really bad a couple weeks ago where the cyano was just all over the rocks and the algae was kind of like floating up and down. And so I just decided just to do ChemiClean and just kind of get rid of the cyano first. And then the algae itself, I knew the fish and the snails, you know, will eventually eat them because I'm slowly adding snails to the tank. I don't want to add too many snails, like I said before, where they eat everything and they're just going to starve and die. I'm just trying to find the balance of snails in the tank, because you can see there's a lot of snails on the rocks structure eating away, right? So I think the amount of snails I have in here is just almost perfect. I need maybe like 1 to like maybe 5 more turbo snails, and that's it, because I noticed the turbo snails are doing a lot of the work, and the guy back there, but it's not quite enough to kind of, you know, completely clear everything. So I think we just need a couple more turbo snails, and I've been trying to look for turbo snails, but the last like 3 weeks or so, the local fish store are all out of turbo snails, so I'm waiting for them, and then I'll just add those guys in there. And I think the conchs that I have on the sand bed are good. I don't need to add any more like snails for the sand bed. In terms of the fish are doing well. Haven't added anything new into the tank yet. We're still waiting for the fish to go through quarantine. We have a couple of them out there in the quarantine tank that hopefully will make it through quarantine, because I had another fish that recently passed away through like a 1-month quarantine and just basically decided not to eat, and there's really not, you know, much I can do. So again, they're still cross my fingers that these guys will go through quarantine and make it in the tank. So that's the biggest change in the tank, is the algae starting to recede. So I've been really happy with that. In terms of the coral, no new corals. We still have the same ones that kind of just bleach, right? They're just back here. Unfortunately, this guy starts to bleach, half of it's bleached. This guy is still good. So that's one of my SPS that kind of just like survived through this chaos. All the other SPS, it seems like it completely bleached. Basically, you know, 99% of the SPS bleached except for the Montes. The Montes are still holding strong. We moved these 2 Montes. They were on the floor, the sand bed. I moved them up here because I'm trying to transition them to stronger light, maybe around 100 to 120 par. I'm trying to get them up to, you know, closer to 200 par, but I want to do it slow because I don't want them to basically bleach back for no reason. But those 2 I recently moved up to that rack there slowly, so we'll see what's going on there. Notice the mushrooms starting to open up a little bit better, just because I think we finally got our alk and our pH kind of stable. I gotta talk to you guys about my alk in a little bit, but my alk has been just kind of weird, so I've been trying to figure that out. But yeah, the tank is looking decent. We got some frozen food here that I'm trying to defrost. So let me kind of stir this guy up. And we'll also turn off the pump and feed them in a second here, and I'll show you guys everything that's going on with the tank. Oh, I take it back, I forgot. I did add in some shrimps. So my local fish store actually had some more cleaner shrimps, but a lot bigger. I added like one smaller one before, and it just got eaten by one of these fish because it was like just like that big. But this guy's the same size as the one I had. Added that guy in there, so he's doing good. And I added he's in this basket because he wasn't eating for the first couple of days, and I wanted to put him in the basket. But that is the fire shrimp, so that's the one that's kind of like the cleaner shrimp, but it's just all red. He's in the basket, so I can actually target feed him to make sure he eats. And then once he's eating, which he's been eating in the past day or so, I'm gonna bring him back out. But he likes to hang on and cling along this basket here, and so food doesn't really get back there, so he doesn't have a chance to eat. But as you can see, look at this. The tank's doing work, eating away at the algae on the rocks. So yeah, actually we do have some new additions here, but again, they're invertebrates, they're shrimp, so technically they're not like really fish, but you know, they're new in the tank. So I was telling you guys that I was interested in running Ozone. I have all my Ozone parts hooked up, and I actually ran the first Ozone yesterday for about 7 minutes. I'm trying to do a low amount of Ozone to start off. So here is what I have set up. So I put a little air intake here for the Ozone. So it pulls in and it goes to this filter, which filters out the moisture that's in the air. Because if you have an Ozone unit, you need to kind of have this thing that scrubs moisture in the air so that it doesn't go into your Ozone unit. Because if it goes in the Ozone unit, it builds up like these particles and these deposits that can basically affect the efficiency of the Ozone unit. So here's my Ozone unit. It's back here as the Ozone Tech Poseidon. So there was a sale. I honestly wasn't jumping the gun to buy Ozone just because, you know, I was trying to stabilize the tank, but it was on sale. I bought it, hooked it up, and just sat there because I was waiting on parts. And we have, you know, Ozone resistant air tubing. So this is the in from the air filter inside from there, and this is the out for the Ozone unit that goes over there. It's on a timer, and I'll show you guys in a little bit how that works. So there is some minor changes in the sump. So I did move the refugium side from there to this side. I'm not running any filter socks anymore. So both of these compartments are just separated, but there's basically a refugium side. This side is going to be where the bubble tips are at. I put back in the divider here so that I can separate this. The reason why I had to do it this way, and eventually I'm going to remove this divider and just have it ran, you know, the old way, is because of the NEMs. The NEMs will eventually climb over this this overflow here and get stuck in between here, and then just get like shredded going down here and then back to the return. It's happened a couple times, and that's why in the old videos you saw me have like some sort of mesh here to block that. I'll probably end up having to go back to that method or something like that when I remove this. But right now I'm just running it this way so that we just have a clear dividing thing. And also I wanted to see if by creating more current, more flow, it'll help oxygenate the water to see if it bring up pH a little bit more. But really, like this method here really doesn't do anything more to my pH. My pH has been the same, so nothing really changed there. But going back to the Ozone, so that Ozone unit's back there. I have that line that comes over to here, and then initially I had that line connected from here to the silencer and then down. But I was reading up somewhere where they said the silencer, even though they're built with acrylic or whatever that should be ozone resistant, it's not the same material. It's like less strong as the skimmer. So I decided just to run it straight from the tube down here. This unit here I bought for like $100 used. It's not designed to run ozone where like you have a, you know, to the pump. You can buy one that has 2 outlets. So this one only has the one that goes to the pump. So all I did was I ran that line from here and I made a adapter here. So I couldn't find any adapters that was ozone resistant where I can go from this tubing to this bigger tubing. So what I did was I had this barb that was one size up. And I'll show you in the clip real quick, but how I adapted it. So I made one with what they came with. So it comes with these barbs here, and one of them is just a 3/16 to 3/16. Another one is a 3/16 to, I think it's a 1/4. And what I'm doing here is doing the 3/16 to 1/4, but I'm able to stretch this tube onto the bigger side here, and I stretched it as much as possible because we're going to be using the drain line or the intake line, which is this here, which fits over there perfectly, and you're going to be fitting it in here because the width of the barb plus this tube here is actually wide enough to, as you can see here, to clear it through. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to push it all the way in, and then we're going to zip tie it. So now we have a secure tubing, and this goes over on top like that, and then you have a nice line in there. That's a quick hack and adapter that I'm doing there. Pretty much I adapted that here and zip tied it so it's tight, and it works. This is also a check valve, one way in only. It doesn't push back ozone, you know, back to the unit or back out somewhere. So it goes back in there, goes down here, and once it goes down there, it runs with the skimmer. And then I also have a pad here because sometimes when you initially start the skimmer, it'll generate bubbles or whatever. It'll push out the bubbles up top. This basically will capture any moisture, and then you have a dry carbon that will absorb anything. And I also have the drain return going back to the sump because I'm not really running the skimmer for skimmer purposes. I'm running skimmers so I can run it in tandem with the ozone specifically. So I did a lot of research on the ozone, and you know, just to be safe, because ozone is or can be dangerous if you know the levels are really high. I have an ozone meter here that I had bought used. If you buy this thing new, I think it goes for like $600 or $700. But if you buy it used, you can get it like around $200 or lower. So luckily I was able to get it used. Basically it is an alarm. It'll go off if your ozone is too high or it leaks through here and it's seeping, and that way you're notified of ozone in the air. So you know, I have pets, I have, you know, family. I don't want to risk it. I'd rather buy something, you know, to avoid that from potentially happening, or you know, if something turns on and it just won't turn off or whatever. I have settings and codes in my Apex to kind of triple check or avoid that, but you know, you never know, right? Just in case. So I have the carbon on there. I have all this stuff here in place of ozone. I ran ozone 2 as a tester without the carbon, and I held that up along here again at very low doses. It doesn't even move the bar. So this is just another precaution, I would say. I've only ran it for one day, so I can't say that yes, it's done what it's supposed to do. All I'm doing it for is clarity and odor is the main two goals that I'm trying to use ozone for. And it's in, like I said, very low settings, the lowest settings possible, in a very short time. So the ozone kicks on for 7 minutes. The skimmer kicks on 1 minute before, and then it runs another 20 minutes after the ozone's out before it turns off. And the reason why it runs this additional 20 minutes is because the half-life of ozone that's in the air is about 20 minutes. So that's why I have it run an additional 20 minutes, just in case if there's ozone that gets escaped in the air, that it gets basically, you know, used up somehow in the tank before the skimmer turns off. All right, so I want to show you guys my code that I have for my skimmer and then my ozone. So I have the skimmer and ozone here. So I'm gonna click on, it's on auto here, so it doesn't turn off. So here's the code, so if there's something that you are interested in doing. So I have it set to off. So the code basically says it starts off, and when it comes on here, so it comes on at 3 a.m. at night for the skimmer, and it turns off at 3:30. And if the return pump somehow is off, the skimmer doesn't turn on. So that's what I have for the code there. And then for the ozone, Same thing, it starts off, and then it turns on 1 minute after the skimmer, and it only lasts 7 minutes total, and then it turns off. I also have other things checked here, so if the OPR is above 390 and ozone doesn't turn on at all. And then the last line I have here is if the skimmer is off, then the ozone doesn't turn on. And then actually I'm going to add another code here to kind of do a redundancy, is if the return pump is off. Return pump is off, then it also turns off. So this is kind of just basically the same thing. So like if it's a double code here really, but I'd rather be safe than sorry, so we'll kind of send that. And then now we have that as our code. But yes, that's how I have my ozone and skimmer set up. Very short duration at night, and basically it's at a time where even if I'm up late, I don't really stay past 3, so I'm not down in this office where the tank is when ozone goes off. So it's, you know, not a big deal. So while we're here, I want to talk to you guys about my algae. So I had some issues with algae, and I'll show you guys. I'm gonna back up a little bit here. Put it back. So algae was sitting at 7.4. You know, that's when I was running it. I didn't do anything different here. The reason why I shot up to here and it's gone up and down here was because I decided to do a solution calibration, because I was switching you know, to a new batch pretty much, and I calibrated the solution. So that's the first calibration, and then this is the first measurement after the calibration. So I went basically from 7.4 to 6.4. Now that's basically one whole point off from what I was, you know, before. So I think that running really low here and out for a while at 7s was really maybe possibly potentially running into 6, and that's why a lot of my corals were not happy. And then also the mushrooms, like I said, retracted. Normally mushrooms, they do good in any condition, but maybe this was too low. So anyways, I did, you know, some sanity checks where I recalibrated, double checked, and that's why this thing's all over the place here, because I did a second check with the Hannah, and the Hannah, oh my god, this kind of threw me off, and I was kind of doing a lot of digging and just research in terms of Hannah versus Trident, but Hannah was off by like 0.8, so it was reading a lot higher when I measured this. So when I measured this, it was at, you know, for Trident it was like 6.4. Like I think Hannah was around like 7 point something, 7.4, 7.5, something high, really high, where I was like up here, and I was like, what the heck? So I didn't know what to trust. Did some research, and I noticed that a lot of people came with the same conclusion, where Hannah normally reads a little bit higher and can range up to like 0.8 to 1 difference between the Trident. And what a lot of people did was they sent their results in with, you know, ICP testing, and they noticed that ICP testing is closer or closely matched to the Trident versus Hannah. Again, this is going off the internet because I didn't send any ICP. I want to towards the end of the year, where it's almost the 1 year mark, to you know, once my conditions are kind of stable, to figure out where I'm at and kind of, you know, adjust from there. So kind of going off of that, I figured that, you know, the Trident's probably more accurate than the Hannah. So this is where we're at in terms of, you know, a couple weeks ago, where we were basically down at 6 point something, and then basically every day I've been adjusting my dose to slowly bring it up to where it is now, and that's where it is now, which is at 7.8. And this, you know, basically over the span of a day, I would adjust it where it would go up anywhere from 0.1 to 0.2 algae every day. Some of these larger adjustments here were during like water changes or something like that, so it would spike up the algae in terms of the water change being mixed in there, and it'll come right back down, right? So like, for example, these two readings here are a true reading where before water change, after water change, it went up a little bit, right? So we're at, you know, 7.8 right now ish, and then hold it at 8 and then kind of keep it steady there, and try to not to do any other adjustments there until I can get ICP test to figure out, you know, where we're supposed to be at. But yeah, so that's where we're at. pH wise, we are still going to the 7, where are we at here? Yeah, 7.8 and low, and then the 8.1-ish in terms of the high. Again, I'm not planning to get like scrubbers or anything, because I've read into a bunch of these other things. It seems like, you know, it gets depleted pretty fast, and we're just going to keep this swing, but try to reduce the swing as much as possible, and try to keep, you know, the dosing or the aggressive dosing around these areas here to kind of boost it up, so it doesn't drop as low. But we'll see what we can do to try to keep pH, you know, as high as possible without having to chase numbers too much. Another thing I'm noticing is my magnesium is starting to creep up higher. Again, this is after the calibration. So after the calibration, everything got screwed up. This was reading at like 1300 before. Now it's at close to the 1400. So probably my magnesium was always high. Just, you know, didn't notice it was as high. But this is creeping up because I'm dosing some other things that are bringing it up. So I need to adjust this today to bring this down, because this formula or this fertilizer that I'm dosing here has some magnesium in it, and so that's why it's creeping up slowly, and I need to adjust this to kind of bring it down, so kind of keep this stabilized. I don't want this to go, you know, past 1500. 1450 is probably the ideal, like high. I don't want to go past that, so I'm gonna make some adjustments to this to make sure that we don't get it too high. All right, so I did just turn off the pump. It's gonna make a bunch of noise, so I'm gonna give it a second. All right, so here's some food for the fishies. That's just 2 cubes. I'm gonna give some to the shrimp too as well. Look at them enjoying that. It's good. Let me get some more water here. It's a little bit noisy. I turned back on the pump, so it's going through, and it's going to be silent in a little bit here. But everything is slowly coming together. We're just going to continue to wait until all this algae is completely gone. Sand bed's pretty much taken care of with the new snails, and I would say, you know, in the next couple of weeks here, you guys will see hopefully some nicer and cleaner tank, and that way we can kind of get some better growth in some of these corals and kind of start up with some of the corals again. We're not quite stable. Again, we're still trying to bring up or out to a level that I like, which is 8.0, and then kind of keep it there in terms of the calc dosing to that. But yeah, we got some nice molt from the shrimps. So things are slowly coming together. We definitely had a lot of setbacks in the tank, but hopefully next month or so we'll kind of get things stabilized, and we'll try to introduce some more corals into the tank and get things going. And for those who are saying, you know, oh, you know, tank's pretty clear. Yeah, it is pretty clear for the most part. And, you know, looking through here, you can kind of see a tint, or like a yellow tint. It's probably a lot more noticeable if you look down here. You see that? It's a little bit yellow down there, and that's what ozone is going to help remove, is that pigment or that yellow tint in the water, where it's going to be crystal clear, kind of like when you make a new batch of like salt, or like, you know, your very first time putting water into the tank, where it's just crazy crystal clear. That's what I want for the tank, crystal clear and odor free in the office, just because it does smell a little bit oceany. You know, obviously, you know, that's what it's supposed to smell like for a reef tank, but we can kind of get rid of that with ozone, and if that's the case, that's what we're going to be doing. Another thing I added was a snake plant on top of my little drawer here, just to kind of add some green into the office, just because I don't have anything else that's, you know, green or alive in the office other than obviously the reef tank. So added that into the tank. Maybe it'll suck up some, you know, carbon dioxide. It's not going to do much, but we'll see. We'll see. This plant is very, very easy to grow in low light. It's right next to the window here. I can just pull up the shade to kind of get some sunlight from time to time. So yeah, hopefully that, you know, this plant does well, grows, takes off, and we might even see, you know, a reduction in, you know, CO2 in the office. We don't know. We don't know. But yeah, Hope you guys enjoy this week's update. If you guys aren't subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe. And like always, the next one, guys, peace.